his MSc in Marine Biotechnology from CAS in Marine Biology, Annamalai University. He did his PhD in Manondamanam Sundaram University. And now he is the scientist heading the Department of Conservation of Coastal and Marine Resources. His area of specialization includes marine invertebrate taxonomy, marine ecology, conservation, management, and endangered species. So with his vast knowledge and experience in this particular area, I definitely and firmly believe that Deepak Samuel will take over this popular lecture series day one to a great extent, to a great level. So I request all the participants to utilize his expertise and make sure you get all the knowledge shared by him, and you can also interact with him to get your doubts cleared. So I welcome Dr. Deepak Samuel to the session. Dr. Deepak.
Good morning. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are clear.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yuvraj, for the kind words of introduction. It's a pleasure always to talk to you, as we've been talking for so many years now. Thank you so much for the organizers for picking me up for this particular workshop, which is happening online. And I just came to know through Dr. Yuvraj that we also have a parallel YouTube link that is being presented today. I would now start sharing a presentation, and I'm sure that you are aware that what I'm going to present on, right? Just a second. Just give me a minute. Yeah, it should be fine. Just let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect. Okay. So with the words of thanks, I will not take much time. The topic that I want to discuss with you today is the availability of resources in a samophytic area. I mean to say that plants which are growing in very extreme conditions that do have some kind of an ethnobotanical potential, and though traditionally we see that the indigenous communities have used traditional medicines, extracts directly without having any kind of an alcohol addition or any kind of solvent that's added. They've been using the vegetation available around them as medicines for various problems, including snake bites, scorpion stings, and then we also for diarrhea, cough. So it has been amazing how these people have been indigenously practicing these kind of traditional knowledge that passes from generation to generation. Of course, it's a dying field right now, as we see that many of the scientific organizations, basically the ones who are involved in pharmaceuticals, taking over, and that's why we have the National Biodiversity Authority of India, which has got an NBA 2002 rule where it says that access and benefit sharing has to be equally given to the communities from where the traditional knowledge is taken, from where the traditional product is taken. So that's where we stand right now in India regarding the ethnobotanical interventions that is being traditionally used by the communities, not just in the coast, in the mountains, wherever they are. They have some kind of local medicine available for various products. So my topic today will be very simple. I will just talk about 6 species of ethnobotanical plant varieties that are useful, have been used traditionally for ages, and how they are now being used in different medical practices. But before that, I will also introduce you to what these coastal sand dunes are, and what kind of role they play in the coastal area, and how are they regulated in the Wildlife Protection Act or within the Coastal Regulation Zone 2019 and 2011, and also the kind of biodiversity, very unique biodiversity that's associated with this very, very small, short vegetation that you see along the beaches. With that, I will just move on to introduce you to what coastal sand dunes are. There's a difference between the normal sand dunes which you see in deserts. If you've been to Rajasthan or some areas where you see that completely the conditions are really insects, arachnids, interestingly snakes, reptiles, especially like the sand boa, So it's very, very interesting to see that though the entire area looks very void, absent of life, we see that there is some kind of animal or plant life that is thriving there. Xerophytic plants, the cactus, succulents, we find them to grow very well in these areas, and there is still some kind of a life present. Though what we visually see is complete, just barren area of tons and tons of sand deposited. The coastal sand dunes are basically are the ones which receives sand particles from the ocean part. Now, how this happens is again a mystery, and those scientists are trying to identify how process happens. We see that there is from the mountains, the big rocks are broken down due to the weathering processes, and then they are broken down to smaller chunks, and then they're broken down into pebbles and rubbles, and then they're broken down to finer grains. By the time they reach the coast, you see that they are into granular form, and that's how the sand is being formed. So whatever sand comes to the ocean through the estuaries has to be drifted along the sides of the both wherever east or west, north or south, wherever they flow, they'll be depositing what we call accretion. So if you obstruct that accretion, then there will be erosion that's happening. And I'm not going to deviate much from that. Just wanted you to understand that the sand supply comes from high up in the mountain due to the weathering process, due to the lithogenous processes, and then they enter into the coastal part, and then they get deposited in uh, the the beach areas. Okay, and you can also see this similar in rivers. And you're aware that all our buildings that are built are built by river sand, not with coastal sand, because the beach sand has got a lot of salt content in that, and it is not suitable for any construction activities. Whereas the ones that are being harvested from the river in a regulated way, again, because you know that now there's a big demand for river sand, and there are illegally people mining river sands, and we have a big problem right now. The revenue departments are breaking their heads how to neutralize people who are involved in activities such as so it's a criminal activity by harvesting the sand, because once we start harvesting river sand beyond its carrying capacity, what happens is that it leads to water table loss, it leads to flooding and many other parameters. So with this introduction, I would say that the coastal sand dune has got a different geomorphological feature in terms of vegetation, in terms of the arrangement, to its counterpart, which is found in the river and the deserts that we see, totally different from one another. So here in coastal sand dunes, we see that they are a buffer between the water part and the land part. Land part, where we say is the soil, I mean the sand that comes to an end with the morphology. After the dunes, it just enters the ocean. We have the intertidal area, and then the oceanic part starts. So it acts as a buffer between the land and the terrestrial area beyond that, and plays a very important role in coastal protection and provides a lot of tourism opportunities. And as I told you, though they are looking very small, if you have been to the beach, either in Chennai or wherever, if you have access to the city where you grow up to the coast, then we're seeing there are very interesting small vegetation that we see, but they're very unique in nature. They supposedly uh, support a lot of macrofauna that are small in nature, and they are found to thrive within this vegetation that we see in the dune area, and we call them specific ecological niches, which means that they're very small, not like a Sundarban forest or not like a Nilgiri reserve forest. It's a small pockets of areas where you see there is some kind of interesting life that is thriving. And these CSDs, they are very unique because the plants, as in the case of the ones in the desert areas, they are very, very unique in terms of their capacity to thrive under very harsh environments. In the desert area, you see that heat is the only factor, and the absence of water. Whereas in the case of the coastal side, you see that heat is one factor, and salt, a process called saltation happens, and then that is again a very harsh environment. So the plants have to be adapted, and they've evolved in such a way that they're adapted to these kind of harsh environments, and they in turn support a lot of life that are out there. And you also see that they're very localized. Whatever species of animals that you see, India per se, the plant vegetation is almost similar. same kind of dune vegetation occurs. Certain places we have one particular species dominating, and other places there's a good mix. But whereas the species of plants associated with them and the animal life, maybe a mammal, maybe a reptile, it's also totally different. So it's very localized, and every sand dune in every state or every district has to be treated as an unique, group. That's the most important thing that we should remember. But what role they play is that, as I introduced you, they are a natural barrier against winds and waves. Even now, we see the entire coast of India is experiencing 34% of erosion. If we take the erosion map of India and see, Kerala, West Bengal is found to be highly, highly eroded. Close to 40% of their land is already gone. And you see in Kerala coast or in Diga Shankarpur or in Mandormani and areas like that in West Bengal, there are dikes that are built. There are man-made hard structures, what we call as groins, what we call as training walls, and these kind of structures are built to avoid erosion. And that's the kind of situation we are in right now in India, with a high impact of erosion on the west coast in Kerala, and Lakshadweep Islands also has undergone a lot of erosion, and there's a lot of land loss in the coast, and east coast we see that the West Bengal is having this problem. They also minimize wave energy, just like the mangroves minimize the wave energy and the wind energy. Sand dunes do the same thing. Like the coral reefs underwater minimizing currents, these dunes, though they are outside water, they have the capacity to minimize the high wave energy that is coming when it attacks the shore, and also protect land areas from damage when the storms or any kind of other storm surges that happen. So they play a very important physical barrier role in terms of their presence and structure. It totally depends upon what kind of vegetation sits in. So if a dune is formed, you see that unlike the case of the desert dunes, coastal sand dunes starts from a very small dune, which I'll explain in the next slide, and then it starts to slowly colonize and start to becoming into a big dune. And they have a very interestingly native floral species that are there, and everywhere you see that these dunes, wherever they're beautiful recreational places for people to go and enjoy in the evening or take a walk in the morning. So what we see on the right side is the basic zonation. You see, it's like a cross section of the entire dune, the dune morphology. You can see. If you're able to see my cursor moving, here you see that this is the zone we call it intertidal, where there is influence of water and it can come up to the high tide line somewhere around here. At the low tide, it can go a little bit deeper. So these highest of high tides and lowest of low tides are called as spring tides and neap tides. So there is an influence of water only till here, but there is an underground water table that's present, and the saline water is absent after the shallow rooted herb area here, what we call as the fore dune. Before the fore dune, there will be also small dunes called as embryo dunes. These dunes are nothing but areas where sand is trapped and a small mound is formed. On top of this mound, we see that slowly vegetation starts to crop up. And vegetation like hydrophile lax, Launos armentosa, they like to colonize first. Once it's colonized, then it starts to trap more sand, and more sand comes, the dune becomes slightly bigger, the mound becomes slightly bigger. Then you see the beach morning glory or the beach beans trying to colonize. And beyond that, when you come to the fore dune, between the hind dune and mid dune, you see that here you can see a lot of other vegetation like the spinifex or other species that start to slowly colonize. So we have a fore dune, we have a mid dune, and a hind dune. Okay, this image is not very scientifically correct here. It is just a new representation, basically, because sometimes hind dunes are very big. There are scientists who also classify the dunes as the primary dunes, secondary dunes, and tertiary dunes. There are scientists also who classify the dunes as the embryo dunes, the fore dunes, the yellow dunes, and the grey dunes. So that category also is there. Basically, the grey dune or the hind dune is a dune where the littoral forest is present, where there might be a small wetland near it, or it can be a dry area. And these areas are basically areas where you see a lot of casuarina plantation happens between the mid and the hind dune. And the casuarina plantation is done to prevent from any kind of cyclone impacts. It minimizes the wind speed. Unfortunately, it is a very unscientific way of doing dune plantation. because casuarina itself is an invasive, it's an alien species, not invasive, an alien species. And we have introduced an alien species into our environment and has been thriving there for almost 30 to 40 years. That's something very interesting we should remember. So dunes, by definition, are mounds of drifting sand on the beach by alien action. Alien action is nothing but wind action, and that lies behind the beach affected by tides. So I told you the tides have the impact till here in the intertidal zone up to the highest high tide line, and from there on, the dune starts to slowly form from a small embryo dune to many others. How do they form? It is formation caused by the accumulation of granules that are wind driven. And I told you that rivers that reach the estuary are the reservoirs of the sand, and when the water flow current, we see all of them get transported into the coastal areas. And on the left or on the right side, or on the east or west or north and south, you can see the deposition happening. And these granules start to slowly settle down. And remember, in the beach is looking, it might look very, very, plain without life. But actually, if you have a very closer look, there will be a lot of crabs, like the ghost crabs. There will be a lot of soldier crabs. There will be interesting bivalves like donax that bury inside. So it's a very active environment, but they're all inside. And only during feeding time, they all start to come outside. And this, as we explained in the last slide, is a kind of a transitional system between the water and the land. From the terrestrial area, from the sea, we see that the dune forms a very, very unique ecosystem in between, sandwiched between both of them. Most importantly, the term scientists use or coastal engineers use is coastal armor. These act as coastal armor. It's like a soldier going for war, prepared with all kinds of. Olden days, we know that the Romans or the Greeks or whom they had the shield, they had a helmet, they had a belt, they had a foot shoes in their foot, a kind of a chapel kind of stuff, and then they had the sword in the sash. And now modern days we see they equip, we carry the guns and they have helmets and they have bulletproof jackets and so on. So like that, the dunes are a kind of coastal armor to the entire biota, to the lives and livelihoods of people living beyond the hind dune or the great dune area. And they also are important in by trapping a lot of good aquifer fresh water, good water that is available. If in the coastal area, I'm not sure how many of you know, if when we were children, when we had gone to the Marina Beach, very close to the shore, there'll be people who will dig up the area and give us fresh water to drink. Very tasty water, very close to the shore. I mean, I'm telling this about 35 years back. Probably some of you would have experienced that in your place where you take. So the water close to the sea is actually found very good. But because of the over exploitation of groundwater, salinity is slowly, it's intruding into the freshwater tables. But dunes play a very important role in filtering, and it acts as a natural, porous system by which the fresh water can be trapped and it's kept as such. And remember, if anybody's got a coastal agriculture that's happening or coastal activity that's happening which depend on freshwater fish culture, pisciculture, then you see that the dunes are the most important areas to give the required substrata for them to continue. So let's move about and see what kind of ecosystem goods and services they provide. Basically, this ecosystem goods and services was a Latin word or a foreign language for people, scientists, very especially in the last 1 decade. But in the last 1 decade, so many things have happened that scientists have started to evaluate and tell how much, in terms of money, these systems provide in a particular area. So based on that, area calculation will be done. And I just got 3 quick points here to tell you that this is one of the studies that we undertook from NCSCM, from our office. It was a work done with our division and another division which exclusively focused on ecosystem goods and services. So our study, we tried to map some of the coastal sand dunes in the east and west coast of India, and we also want to document the biodiversity and see what kind of flora and fauna that are present. And third, we found throughout the surveys along India that the dunes are areas that are exploited badly. It has been used as fishing space by fishing community without proper scientific knowledge. They just throw their nets on top of it, killing the vegetation, or we see that lots of developmental activities that happen in the dune area. So it's now in a very degrading condition. So our study was basically to evaluate the goods and service, and also to provide what kind of requirements are there for dunes to be restored or protected in the coming days. So this is basically the four principles of goods and services. This is from the TEEB, a Millennium Evaluation Ecosystem Evaluation System, which is an accepted international procedure by which we identify what kind of goods and services every ecosystem can provide. Though dunes are considered as a geomorphological feature, they do have small micro ecosystem, as I introduced you in the earlier slides. And this particular goods and service image, this infographic is prepared by our own institution, so which is now used internationally also by many of them working on it. So you see that it's divided into provisioning, regulating, culture, and supporting services. Provisioning means they provide water catchment and purification, as I told you, how important it is in terms of coastal agriculture, drinking water, in terms of pisciculture, coastal pisciculture, freshwater pisciculture. And also, dune areas are areas filled with lots of minerals. I don't know how many of you have been to Kanyakumari. If you have been to Kanyakumari, then you would have seen different kinds of minerals: black, red, blackish gray sand, all these things. These are all mineral rich. There are a lot of minerals like the magnetite and ilmenite and so many others found in different levels, and which bring these radioactive or important minerals that are economically useful for the country, and also defense wise also is very useful to create a lot of other radioactive products. In terms of regulation, how does it regulate? It regulates erosion control because of their structure as a barrier, as an armor. They're able to minimize the erosion, and also they protect the coast from storm surges, from cyclones, by minimizing the wind speed and letting only little wind that to flow into the areas that are beyond the dune or the hind area. In terms of culture, you see they are very interesting areas for bird watching. Probably you'll ask a question, what birds come there? You see that coast is always very active. There are plenty of gulls. I'll show some slides what interesting bird species that come there, and this becomes an important part because these birds come for feeding or for nesting on the ground. Very rarely see nesting. Some of the stints do nest on the vegetation that's found right beyond the dunes, and whereas you can see a lot of predatory birds, that are flying around always to see what kind of food is available in the area, because these dunes, which are available seen in the beach, provides a lot of food, which are net discards, fish that are caught by fishermen, and the waste food for all of them, and they just come and pick it up and they thrive very well there. And also recreation. Dune is a beautiful place for recreation. In entire coast of India, you see Orissa dunes are very beautiful. Goa dunes are very beautiful. And of course, Tamil Nadu also has got some dunes. We have in Puliket, we have little in Kadalur, we have in Dhanushkodi plenty of dunes with close to 4 meters to 8 meters in height. So it's very interesting, and a lot of recreational activity, climbing on top and climbing down. You see that children have fun. You can slide down. So that's a lot of cultural service it provides. So when cultural service people go there, it's revenue again. All these are in terms of revenue. We have to calculate in terms of revenue, and that's why this ecosystem goods and services concept came in. And then we see that they're supporting services. In culture, we also research and education. I forgot to tell you, where where we come into play. As biotechnologists, we try to see what kind of plants are supporting or thriving in this harsh environment, and because of this capacity to thrive in harsh environment, what kind of possible metabolites they can have that can be tapped, and how we can go ahead in developing a chemically synthesize them, or developing a molecule that might be of a pharmaceutical or even nutraceutical importance. And supporting service, how what they support? They support a lot of biodiversity, very unique biodiversity, very, very small insects, very small arachnids, and lots and lots of burying forms of worms and mollusks, and plenty. Fresh, I mean, these mollusks are terrestrial mollusks. And then we also see that they act as a nursery. And you all know what a nursery is. We all grew up in nursery. Nursery is a place where little children come. They are taken care by providing education, by providing all kind of protection, and teaching them to grow up. And that's exactly what these nurseries are in terms of these the dune vegetation. So this is in general about the goods and services that they provide. This is some work that are done by us in both in Tamil Nadu and also in Odisha. In Tamil Nadu, we focused more on the Puliket side, and you see this basically My team is doing a quadrant survey. It's a 10 meter by 10 meter quadrant in which they are doing the vegetation structure. They're finding what the percentage of vegetation coverage. I'll show you how the sheet is worked out, because if anybody's interested, even want to do a study on the coast, before you do the biotechnological intervention, you first see how much of uh, biomass of these plants are available. So there has to be a responsible harvesting. We cannot just blindly take everything away and leave nothing behind. So it has to be a very systematic approach in whatever we are involved with in terms of taking resources for any kind of biotechnological intervention. So we in Tamil Nadu, Odisha, as I told you that in Tamil Nadu 37 species and Odisha 27 species in small areas. We just wanted to do a comparison and see how they're different, because both on the east coast and what kind of difference they have. And most of the time we found that lots of similarities between them. But in case of Tamil Nadu, we found that the beach vegetation or the dune vegetation have been replaced with casuarina plantation, as I told earlier, which is in ways it's an alien species. And once you plant them, then other vegetation will not grow, and there's a problem. So at the lower box here, you can see what kind of species also found to dwell in the dune area. You can see how dry and arid it is, but actually if you watch carefully, every part has got some kind of vegetation, small in groups. And very interestingly, they have like floral arrangements. They are like, either there'll be like flowers coming out, like a finger like projection that's coming out, all the vegetation. That's the specialty of the dunes. So this is how we do the density, diversity, and dominance characterization. And then we do some statistical analysis to see what kind of species present, how much vegetation cover is there, to give a clear idea. And this we do after having the GIS maps in the hand, so that we know the locality correctly, and we go to the field and identify. This is again very detailed diverse dominant density for Litorius. Spinous Litorius is species in Shamuka Beach in Odisha. So basically, you see that's a very classic zonation. You can see this is in Odisha. You see the height of the dune. There's almost 7 to 8 feet in height. This is me taking a click. We are just doing the embryo dune vegetation, and clicking the embryo dune and see how well they grow. Small embryo dunes slowly moving into 4 dunes, and the mid dunes are basically mobile dunes because they can change from one place to another. But when they become a yellow dune, they're established and become a gray dune, they are completely unshaken. So yellow dune is a decider of where the dune will settle before it keeps moving about in the mid dune area. And you see the kind of zonation, right? There is in the first zone there is no flora because the water influence is there. You will not have an embryo dune, small embryo. You can see my cursor moving about. Spots, hydrophylax or bulbostylus will be there. And then 4 dunes slowly colonizing. You can see hydrophylax will be there, bulbulus, spiny starts to come inside, hypomia and calotropy starts to come inside. And slowly you see that pioneering species, past vegetation, finally mixed vegetation coming up in the hind dune area. And slowly beyond the hind dune, you can see only trees growing in the grey dune area or the big dune area. This is again from Shamuka Beach. You see the interesting vegetation. Of course, many of them have been plantations also. For example, if it is casuarina, it has been planted. You can see E is pandanus, which is natural here, whereas E here is a casuarina that has been introduced. So once you introduce them, there is a problem. You can see even beyond the Cereus, which is a cacti, you can see there's a lot of casuarina. I can see even beyond calotropis there is cacti. Whereas you see the Anacardium occidentale which is the the cashew vegetation that's still growing well naturally. So this is how the beach dunes look like when they're completely colonized. Of course, Vinca rosea is basically an opportunist. Wherever there is a suitable area, a little soil sufficient for it, we can see them. They're called as graveyard flowers because when you go to any graves, if you are especially going to any of people, a burial happens, in terms of Christians or Muslims, you can see them lots and lots of these Vinca rosea that grows along with the grave area. Now we will just see what kind of animal life will be there. Okay, any guess on this species? Any one of you? If I keep talking, then it will become very boring. Anybody? Let me minimize my screen and see if anybody can, see. Anyone can tell me what species this is? Hello.
I think I am only here. Other people? Anybody
How
around
many
that?
of you how many of you have dogs in your house? I'm sure some of you have dogs, right? I'm not able to see you all, but probably can tell you what species of dogs you have. Do you have dogs at home? I know Yuvraj has got dog at home. What happened? I don't hear any of you. Any guess on what this animal is? It's a mammal, of course. Any guess on this one? Coyote is not found in India, my dear. You're right. It looks very close to coyote, but coyote are basically American. We are this. I'm talking only about the Indian species. Okay, this is the Indian dune. So we are talking about in just beyond the hind dune. We see this guy running about. I have a reason for bringing this here because this is the Indian golden jackal. Okay, this is one of the smallest of the canines that we have wild in the country. Okay, and we have still smaller one. There's a red fox also. Not red fox exactly. One Rajasthan and in one more place in north of Gujarat, you see there is one particular small fox, very very small. It will be as big as a bunny, slightly bigger than the bunny, a rabbit. Okay, but this fellow golden jackal is one of the dominant mammals that you find in the dune area, and they'll be out only during the night time. If you're going to Pulicat in the night time, you can see them coming in families together in packs, and very interesting. Why I have put this image is that this is an important dune dweller. This fights with local dogs because in the dune, in the beach area, you can see dogs. After the dogs, you can see these golden jackals. Very, very common. Okay, so this is the biggest mammal that you see in the dune area. Whereas in case of birds, we have the Brahmini kite, we have the white-bellied sea eagle, and you also have the black kite. So these three, look at the beaks, look at the claws. This is an indication that they're highly predatory, they're carnivorous, and they'll be waiting for an opportunity to grab. Look at their eyes are as sharp. Okay, people say, as sharp as an eagle, as sharp as a vulture. Because even from kilometers above, they can see a small snake that's wriggling, they can see a small chick that is moving about to come and prey on them. So these three are the birds that live close to dune area. They'll be resting in the trees nearby, but they'll just come down, swoop down to take rats. They can come down to take snakes, lizards, whatever is available on the beach area. This is the beauty of the dune, and probably if the dune is colorful, is because of these fan throat lizards. This is Citana ponticerina, a very beautiful lizard species, like the garden lizard. But if this is a typical mating behavior or mating display of a male, it shows that yeah, this is what I am, this is what color I have. And you see that the garden lizard looks very close to this Citana. Okay, they call it agami lizard also, fan throat lizard, agami lizard. So you can see the stripe. You have to very clearly distinguish. As a biologist, if you are interested in nature watching, then you have to very clearly identify that this is not a garden lizard. In the case of garden lizard, the males will have a armor on the head, heavy armor, broader heads. Okay, whereas the females will look almost same like this. Whereas in the case here, the males itself have no crown on their head, armor on their head, but they have flat heads, and then you see this beautiful display that is seen. And this is an interesting behavior. Okay, they stand with hind limbs on top, right? You know that kangaroos can hop up and stand like that. Sometimes even mongoose do that, and not sometimes, many times meerkats, so many of the animals, they just stand up with two limbs and just peep what is there. But this lizard, the fan throat or the agami, they have they have a beautiful display of standing. Another interesting species, a large reptile that comes to the beach from the sea, is the olive ridley turtle or any other of the matter. Okay, it can be olive ridley. This is a Lepidophytes olivacea. We have the green turtle, Chilonemydas, and we also have Carata carata. We have the loggerhead. We have the Dermochelis imbriata. So there are many species of turtles that also come and nest in the beach area, and these areas are very close to the dune vegetation. Okay, now we had a complete introduction about the dunes. We introduced what these dunes are, what exactly they play as a physical barrier, what they do as an armor, what they do. But we have to also look little into the ethnobotany. There's a small spelling mistake here. N is missing. Ethnobotany, it came as ethnobotany. So what does ethnobotany mean? Ethnobotany is a scientific study of traditional knowledge and customs of a people concerning plants and their medical, religious, and other uses. Meaning to say that the plants that they have, or the parts of the plants that they have some kind of potential. That's exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to look at 6 important sand dune flora that have ethnobotanical value. The first one is Vitex trifolia. The common name is simple leaf chisel, and this comes under a family called as Lamiaceae. Interestingly, the tree is shrubby in nature. It's not a tree, sorry, it's a shrub. It's a well-grown shrub, and they have the leaves, the roots, fruits, all play a very important role in uh, having some kind of a drug in them that is used for various purposes. You see, they're used for rheumatic pain and for inflammation. They're used analgesic, anticonvulsant, sedative, hypnotic. Imagine people using chlorophyll for sedatives, whereas you see that naturally the leaves of this plant has got a sedative potential. So this is again scientifically proven, and there are a lot of papers that support it. And it's also found that these leaves also have insecticidal. They are cytotoxic, meaning to say that they have the capacity to, impact or affect cells in any body. They are fungicidal in nature. This is again scientifically proven. Whereas the roots per se are anti-emetic, which means that they avoid vomiting. They avoid people who are vomiting. Now you know that when you go on bus, people who have the motion sickness or travel sickness, they carry a lemon with them. Okay, whereas we see that already historically when these people traveled, of course they didn't have bigger vehicles like this to travel, but even when they went in a car to something, long journeys, dehydration would also result in nausea and so on. They used to take the antiemetic, and they also as an used an expectorant, a medicine which promotes secretion of sputum. So if children had chest congestion, then Vitex roots were squeezed out, and then the used for treatment, and the air passages in the nasal areas, and chest cold, whatever is there, and cough, all the phlegm used to come out after taking the decoctions. And they also are been recorded as that a tonic and beneficial in thirst. I do not know exactly what they mean by thirst here, but as a tonic, yes, it has been used. Even homeopathic medicines, it's used in Ayurveda, where you see that the tonic is used for good free passage of air, and also for lungs is being used. Okay, and the fruits, small fruits, berries, and they're nervines, and they're used to calm nerves, cephalic, and emmenagogue, a substance that simulates or increases menstrual flow. So you see from just the plant, how many products are available. Okay, that's the speciality of this indigenous traditional knowledge. This is not modern medicine. All these have come from a historical indigenous traditional knowledge background. Okay, and this plant in Hindi is called sambalu, and in Tamil it is called as karunochi. And this is again a very important coastal vegetation that you see in the mid dune and high dune areas. In the fore dune, it will be different. Spinifex will be there, supported by Ipomia or by Canvalena. Okay, so this is the first plant which I want to impress upon. And I would also encourage you to do some kind of an research, to see what kind of potential they have. I do not know, there's not much of information regarding the antiviral potential it has got, but a lot has been done on anti-inflammation and so on. So as youngsters, I encourage you to go to this beach area, see what kind of vegetation is there, talk to the local people, especially people who are old, get their influence, ask them what plants are medicinally important, and then you try testing them. And before you test them, make sure you've done your literature review well, so that you don't start something that has been completed from the scratch and duplicate the entire work. The second plant that we're going to see is Hybanthus eniospermus, a very beautiful plant, and this you can see on roadsides also, close to the beach areas, or if you're driving down the ECR or OMR. Sometimes at the the eastern side of OMR, we see that between the ECR and OMR, you can see plenty of this plant. growing, very small plant. It's called as the spade flower or the pink lady slipper. Okay, very very beautiful looking plant, and it's got a lot of medicinal uses. What are the medicinal leaves? Are decoction, and the tender stalks is a demulcent, a substance relieving inflammation, irritation. And the root is diuretic in nature, and this is being even practiced now. People who do not have a frequent motion of for frequent urine passing, then they are traditionally provided with this. You see the traditional doctors even now prescribe this, and it's very very important, and in terms of traditional, in the local traditional medicine in the villages. And you see that for even all kinds of urinary infection, urinary tract infections, and if the children have a bowel complaint, meaning to say that their stools are not passed well, then this is given in different forms, as a concoction, or or a small ball of mixture, and then it is given. But interestingly, the fruit, which is very very small, is used to treat scorpion sting. I do not know whether it is consumed or whether the fruit is extracted and made into a paste or a juice and then applied in the place where the scorpion had stung. So that is a big question. I'm not sure, but all I know is that medically it has been used for various purposes, but traditionally it has been, prior to the usage of allopathic medicine, it has been used in plenty in the traditional knowledge. And the common names, vernacular names for is Ratan Purush in Hindi, and Orital Tamare. Orital Tamare, because there's only one leaf.
It is actually called as Oridal Tamare.
Oridal?
Oridal.
Oridal Tamare. Okay. Oridal. Right.
Tamare.
Thanks. Oridal. So because it's got only one petal. So I think the either means the petal here, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Great. Okay. Again, an interesting species to work on, to see what you can probably investigate and see. This is one of my favorite plant, Hydrophylax maritima. It's a succulent, and interestingly, you see them not growing anywhere except the coastal sand dunes. Very very beautiful, and sometimes the flowering is very good. Along with the salt marsh plants, you can see them with nice purple or lavender color flowers, completely glowing in the morning sunrise if you walk along the beach. And it's called commonly the East Indian water bluet, and the arrangement is beautiful, as I told you. And its roots and leaves are used for pulmonary disorders, for arthritis, for rheumatism, for kidney, skin, and liver diseases. Of course, these medication that has been prescribed in the traditional medicine and also in Ayurveda and Unani, if I'm not mistaken, are basically composition dependent. It is not that small flower or a small leaf. I think it is a huge number of these plants are collected, washed, processed, and then the treatment is taken, given to the patient. And the vernacular name is Ankri or Ankul in Hindi, and in Tamil we call it Kuraval Chedi. Okay, it's called as Kuraval. This is the other one. The next one is Pedalium murex. Again, this is called as the large caltrops. This is again interesting vegetation that you see only in the dune area. Rarely you see them growing, but now, based on the dispersal of seeds to the wind and to birds and zoophilia we call it, any kind of pollination that can happen, we can see even beach vegetation growing inside, close inside city also, in Chennai city also, maybe 15 kilometers away. So there is a kind of adaptation that you see. Plants which were only found to grow in unique environments, arid environments. These plants that grow in the salt areas or the dune areas, we call the samophytes. Psammophytes. Samophytes. The P is silent there. So now we can see some of them, these particular plants, also growing interior because of their adaptation to various conditions. They only require good substrata, and then they're able to colonize really well. So commonly it's called the large caltrops, and it is used in very many medicinal uses, and it is sweet, it is a cooling agent, it is mucilaginous, diuretic, inflammatory, and used to treat digestive carminative, which means that people who suffer from flatulence, indigestion, and so on, this has been used in the past. and we do not know traditional medicine even today they might be using. A tonic is prepared, and I know that very well that in homeopathy we do have, in Ayurveda we do have decoctions and tonics prepared. It's also spasmodic, used in spasmodic affection, in amenorrhea, which is again abnormal menstruation or absence of menstruation. Then vitiated condition of vita, that is the uh, people who have aversion of food. Some of them, that when they have a look at the food, they start puking, because the food it's a visual allergy for them. So it is given for that. Basically you see this is given to children when there is a lot of pranks shown by the children to not eat foods. And it is used for inflammation, general debility, and other treatments like puerperal diseases, like in the child during childbirth time. Basically, overall, when you see that this particular plant is used as a digestive coolant, and that which can produce a carminative effect in the body. And they are also used for treating of ulcers, fevers, and also for cut wounds. Interestingly, we have lots and lots of documentation of this. Again, this becomes a good candidate for trying out against any of the things you want to do. In vernacular, it is called as Bada Goguru, and Anai Nerunji is the name that is given in Tamil. Probably you might ask me, like, since so much of medicinal and also R&D intervention happen, what is my role? Is it possible? Imagine this particular field, the field of drug discovery, is always new. Okay, if somebody is tried already with Pedalia murex, then there is a chance for it to mix two different vegetation, Pedalium or Ipomia, together and see what kind of impacts that has on the environment. If they have the same similar characteristics, you can see how to speed up the healing of a particular disease, or how to minimize the spreading impact of a particular disease. That combination of drug extraction from different phytal ethnobotanical plants will help you to come to a conclusion, or at least lead to a new area of research where we can see, okay, this particular plant extract has got cures fevers, but if I added something else, can I cure fever that are viral in nature in a shorter period of time, 2 days, 3 days? That kind of a question should throw out from your mind. This is one of my all-time favorites, Ipomia pescapre, the beach morning glory, a very, very beautiful plant that is it's a runner. It runs, it takes over the entire beach. The entire beach is green because of the presence of Ipomia pescapre. And we have one more relative. This is called as the beach morning glory, or the coast morning glory, or the goat's foot creeper, or railroad vine. It's called railroad vine because along the railroad you can see them growing completely, but that's a different species. It's got the same name. And please remember, Ipomia has got 13 to 14 species that grow even on top high altitude mountain. We have them in the Nilgiris, in Kodaikanal, and the Western Ghats, different species. But what I'm focusing here is the beach morning glory. If you see very carefully, look at the leaves. As I told you, this is the first vegetation after hydrophylax to colonize in the mid dune, and this stabilizes the entire beach because the roots can go deeper up to 2 meters, 7 feet. Okay, so these plants, a leaf is like a cup. When the sand is blowing, it traps the sand and drops the sand down. A very beautiful morphological evolutionary adaptation this particular plant has got, and these are highly capable of adapting to any kind of a change that happens in the environment. Because see, it is not just the hard wind that brings in sand particles, granules, which are very sharp. They'll cut through the plant, so the leaves are thicker. Second thing, they make a funnel, trap the sand and drop it just under them, and they increase the size of it. And third, imagine this high saline condition where salt water crystals keep flowing all the time. I mean, the crystals meaning that the salt water, the humid water that is spraying, salt spraying happens, it comes, settles down, and it crystallizes. If you've been to the beach, when you walk along the beach, when you come back, if you rub your chin, you can see crystals of salt on your face. So these undergo that, and every time there's a cleaning happening by the wind. So naturally, they have a very beautiful role to play in the environment, especially in the beach environment. They play a very important role in binding the sand together, so the erosion does not happen on the coast. Otherwise, if erosion happens continuously, there will be no sand dunes. Because the vegetation is there, the dunes are intact. Right, and what are the medicinal uses? they are used for jellyfish stings. Of course, many of you wouldn't have seen jellyfish. There are different kinds of jellyfish. There are two schools of thought. The fish cannot be in the form of a jelly. So one school of thought says it is fish that are like jelly, or we don't call them jellyfish, we call them sea jellies, and we had to name it like that. Okay, and some of them, like the Portuguese man of war, or the Physalia, or diuretic is there, laxative properties. Laxative, basically when you have a problem of unable to pass motion, what you call it as the condition that is called as I'm constipated, they say, right? So that is time they give the a small mix of this leaf, and interestingly see that the entire plant is used in ritual baths. I do not know, I'm not aware of the ritual baths, because sometimes what happens, in the bathtub they put a lot of other perfumes and so on things, and then they just go inside to sleep for some time and come out just for relief in their body. But ritual baths do happen even now in some places, but it was news to me when I read that even hypomnia is used for that. So vernacular name is Chagali or Do Patti Lata, and in Tamil it's called Adambu Kodi or Artikal Adamban. So these are the names that are given. Artikal because the leaves look like the deer's foot. That's why the goat's foot. That's why it's called Artikal Adamban. And the last plant we will see today is the Tephrosia purpurea. We call it Korinji, also in Tamil. And interestingly, I used to work a lot on this plant when I started my PhD career earlier, because I was interested in working with fish aggregating devices. And the fishermen of Tuticorin district used to take this plant in whole and dry it, put them bunched together, tie them with the weight, and drop it in 10 meters, 12 meters depth in the shallow Gulf of Mannar. And this attracts a lot of cephalopods, squids and cuttlefish, and there's fishing there. There's put the jigs. For normal fishing, you use the angler and the hook, but for cephalopod fishing, you use jigs, where you see there'll be jig roll. It's difficult to explain to you now, but that was used to catch them, and these plants were acting as fish aggregating devices, what we shortly call as, acronymize it as FADs. So the roots, again, this is very important plant. The roots, leaves, seeds, bark, everything used in Ayurveda, the entire plant is digestible. Okay, like again, you can ask a question: how can it be digestible? Because it has got plant material, right, and that not digest very fast. But then this has got a capacity for the digestion to take place faster. It digests very fast because of our system inside our body, and they're used for very many medical purposes. They choose an anthelmintic, that is basically to treat children or adults who are suffering from severe stomach pain regularly. That's caused by parasitic worms, the annelids. They cause a lot of problem. Then it is used as an alaxteric, an antidote for poisoning. It's used an antipyretic. Imagine the kind of roles it has got. It works. It's a multi-drug for many kind of healing process. It uses an alternative, cures diseases of liver, spleen, heart, blood, tumors, ulcers, leprosy, asthma. Name everything. This particular plant. Again, it's a wonder plant. There are many wonder plants, like the palm tree is one of the wonder shrubs, probably I would say, that is found in the coastal area. And in the Unani system, is used as diuretic and thirst allayment, blood enricher, cures diarrhea, used in bronchitis, asthma, liver, spleen disease, inflammation, boils and pimples. So even for face treatments, right nowadays we are so very worried about our physical appearance, right? Even the men started to go to beauty parlors to do the facials to look fresh and look good. But olden days, people looked young, looked fresh, because they went behind bioproducts, not in chemically prepared materials that are used for treatment purposes. And we see that happening here traditionally for many centuries. So the leaves are used as tonic to intestine, as an appetizer. Wow, that's something good. Maybe before having a food thereafter, probably you should try. And don't quote me anywhere saying that I was the one who asked you to try. Test everything before you try. And this has been proved, and there's a lot of paper. Read the papers, go through the content, and then try anything. Because my presentation also comes a rider at the end saying that no, don't try it like this. What I have tried, then the bike ads come and they try the stunts. Don't try this at home, they say. Similarly, don't try. But then the list of all the properties it has. Even I feel like, probably try making a drink out of it and see how well it works. And also it is treated for piles, syphilis and gonorrhea, and it's got a lot of antiviral properties. And Hindi it is called as Banlil in our Sarfong. In Tamil it's called Kavali. So we just had time to see 6 important ethnobotanical vegetation. We started with what coastal sand dune is, how it's different from regular sand dune, and what roles and physically they play, environmentally they play, and also in terms of economic, in terms of people's livelihoods, water, everything they play. And then we saw the different kinds of species that the goods and services they have, the assorted flora and fauna. Then we just picked up 6 important ethnobotanical floral vegetation. But now is a time to protect them. As I told you, responsibility is something important as citizens of the country. And we have tried many places. I'm not sure how many of you know about the blue flag beaches of India. The blue flag beaches of India concept stemmed out from our institution way back in 2016-17, when our Honorable Minister of Environment visited our campus. From there it started, and today we have 12 beaches certified as blue flag beaches. It's a very prestigious thing. In Tamil Nadu, we have the Kovalam beach that's certified. In Andamans, we have the Radhanagar beach. In Gujarat, we have Shivrajpur. And in Odisha, we have Golden Beach. In Vizag, we have the Vizag beach. Like that, there are beaches named, and everywhere we see that you cannot cross the dune, you cannot trespass the beach everywhere. We do fencing like this, we do boardwalks like this, so that there will be one common entry for the people to go to the beach and come back the same entry, so that they don't trample the dunes and the vegetation and the assorted flora and fauna with them. So we are putting signboards everywhere possible as the Ministry of Environment. It's a roles and responsibility to make sure that the local states and union territories follow certain norms and regulations to protect whatever beautiful geomorphological feature that we have. As per the CRZ 1A notification of 2019 and the winds, and out of that the sea, you can see here, this is sand dune. Sand dune is also protected under the wildlife under the CRZ 2019 notification as CRZ 1A area. There are CRZ 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D areas, but in 1A, these 11 of the eco-sensitive areas have been protected. They have a regulatory legal framework. So you cannot destroy dunes like that, you cannot trample the vegetation and so on. We have to do it systematically and plannedly. So these are the 11 ESS, as I told you, the dunes are here, and they play a very important role in protection. So as a responsible citizen, we should also make sure that whenever we go to beach areas, we do not destroy what is around us. If the vegetation is there, make sure you close to vegetation, take pictures, enjoy about it. Don't trample them, don't destroy them, don't pluck them, leave them as such. Of course, if you have vegetation like spiny-fix that you see here, you cannot even go inside because they'll poke you through your skin. And they're like, lancet needles that can just penetrate into your skin, 3-4 centimeters, very, very sharp. Tamil, it's spiny-fix called Ravana Misa, or Ravana's mustache in the common name. So leave the environment as such. But again, there's a lot of opportunity, and even before you harvest them for any kind of study, make sure that you take required permissions from the coastal zone management. Every state has got a state. Tamil Nadu has got a TNCCM, Tamil Nadu Coastal Zone Management Authority. Every state and UT has got its own coastal zone management authority. Write to them and say that I want to take a little bit of vegetation. Or if it is a very popular one, it's not a schedule, you can collect it, but make sure you don't collect it in large numbers. Okay. With that, I will complete my presentation. And if you have any questions, my email ID is down, deepak@ncsm.res.in. You are most welcome to write to me. Just mention that this is the time we interacted, through that conference, and then you can let me know what issues you have. Based on that, we can take a call. All right, I'll be happy to take questions from you.
Guys, any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions right now, you can mail it to Dr. Deepak Samuel, who will be much pleased to offer your answers. So we'll end the day's session. Thanks, Dr. Deepak, for your extensive lecture on sand dunes and sensitizing the roles and responsibilities of humans. How should they behave with the areas which they live in, and I firmly believe that you've inculcated some sort of knowledge about the sand dunes, their properties, and how to preserve and conserve them. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Deepak, and we'll be meeting in person maybe short time later.
Sure.
And yeah, participants, thank you for attending so patiently. So we'll once again join for the next session tomorrow morning by 9:30. Thank you so much. Okay, thanks again, Dr. Deepak.
Thank you, Dr. Yuvraj. Have a good day.
So, Pavitran, are you here? Yeah, so you can end the meeting right now. If anything else to be conveyed, you can convey it and end.